Right. Evening, folks. Gonna do a little bit of streaming. Haven't done this for a little bit. Went home for Thanksgiving, and it was so nice to be home again. um, but now I'm back on the road, and I've got my studio set up again on the road. Had to do a lot of cleaning up at home and got it set up, but never really got the time to break into a stream. So tonight I want to pick up on where I was. I was not that happy with the last stream that I did, where I started to do a little bit of cleanup around the Maxim-Engine. And, some of the stuff that I really wasn't happy about was it felt like my whole brain wasn't there. Ever feel like that when you're coding? One day I'll take that as a warning sign that maybe I should step away and not code for a little bit. We'll see how it goes today. I think I want to just review a bit what I was doing last time and to kind of take a look at the state of my testing, because I think that's where I started to fall into some shady things. I do have on the do I have let's just do you, and I got to figure out how I want to do this. I'm going to use Edge on my channel for browsing. Let's see, I want to go to GitHub, and I'm going to go to, oh wow, not even logged in here? What kind of crazy world is this where I'm not already logged into GitHub? I'll tell you what kind of crazy world. It's doing a lot of management consulting, not enough coding. Okay, so I've got Maxim-Engine, and oh yeah, sure, great. New features in GitHub. Okay, so let's check my projects. I'm pretty sure that I left one in progress here. Oh no, I closed it through. Fix the coverage, sort of. Let's check the state of our tests. I'll pull up a PowerShell here. And back to Maxim-Engine. And look at our test suite and see where we stand. So we're all good on passing tests. We can make a double run through the rule set. That's fine. Maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of leave things where they are. I'll step into the next little task that I wanted to do, and as I see things, I'll clean them up as I go. I don't really want to stop forward momentum in order to, do a big, clean up, a yak shaving adventure. Yeah, I'd like to not do that. My goal with every one of these streams is to get a little bit of forward momentum on the project, and so far I think we're doing okay with that. As a matter of fact, I was thinking pretty soon I might go and plug the Maxim-Engine into the project that spawned it. That's that old, well, not old, but the receiver function that I wanted to use with AWS Lambda for the online reading tutor project. Okay, so here we are. I've got, let's hop back into here, rule priorities and nameable rules. I wanted nameable rules so that I could think about some kind of reporting. Here's the result of the rule set. Oh, by the way, here's all the stuff that I did to get there. I feel like that's going to be important for I think, kind of acceptance testing in and around the outer shell of the rules engine, which, did I save that? Yeah, I kind of have, I have an engine spec and a Maxim-Engine spec. Yeah, that's interesting. So the Maxim-Engine spec holds our integration, and the engine is described by the engine spec. I'm not strictly happy with this name, Maxim-Engine spec. Maybe for clarity, I'm just going to really quickly pop in, and I'm going to call this the integration spec. Okay, so the integration spec describes the Maxim-Engine public functionality. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see that holds true. I want to use this to prove out specific acceptance test scenarios. I'm not strictly sure that I want to continue using this test stack here, but given that this is a personal project and I am both the product owner and the developer, I feel like from an acceptance test suite standpoint, I feel like it's okay for me to express these in code as opposed to some other acceptance testing technology. So I'm gonna stick with this as it is, just with that little rename. All right. Let's step into rule priorities. Oops, did I click on me? I didn't mean to. So I like to have rule priorities before nameable rules because I feel like prioritization is something that's more likely to be required by end users in this system. So I was going to drop it in progress. Now, my thinking around priorities is actually pretty simple. All I'd really like us to be able to do is to describe when we're building the rules, like this rule here. Here we have two rules, a sample rule 1, a sample rule 2, each with condition and a consequence. I feel like I'd like to give someone the option of placing a priority key in that hash. And we will sort the rules before we run them by that priority key. That sounds like a thing. What do you think? Let's see what the test looks like for that. So let's describe, and I'm going to start, you could almost call this ATDD, what I'm about to step into. I'm about to write the acceptance level test for this feature through the public interface. And of course, that's going to fail because we don't do prioritization yet. And maybe I'm too far on the outside. Well, let's see how this goes. It's really easy in Mocha just to say, you know what, let's disable this for the time being and put it back in when we want it. So if I don't want to be distracted by the failing acceptance test failure around the outside before I step into my TDD, I can temporarily disable it, leave that failing test there. When I'm finished TDDing, or as I get close to finishing the TDD work on the implementation of this feature, I can uncomment this and then let the acceptance test run and watch everything pass as I come to completion. So I think I have a path defined here, and I'm just gonna try to reason it out in this. So if I had a sample rule, and the sample rule did, you know what, I really like these. Now, I want to try and set up a situation where I can see effect of the prioritization. I may need more than 2 rules, or I may need some chaining rules. Let me think this through. If I have a rule with a condition, actually let's start at the starting point. If I ask rules in priority order, right? Gonna have to stress my brain a little bit on this one, and my spelling abilities. So it should evaluate the rules in priority order. So when I register those rules, whatever they are, this is its own describe block, so maybe we'll just say we're going to define the rules as an array. So when I register those rules, and we get the working memory out of the engine after executing across some thing, let's use like a little bit of math. A little bit of math. Value of 1. All right. Thinking this through, I think I might have a good thought right now. When I do that, let's expect something. What value? Let's expect it to still equal 1. Now, let's say 100. I gotta think. I gotta think now. I has a think. Okay. I have a thought. Now this is this should execute but fail. Just gonna double check that. It should fail because the value is not 100, it's still 1. I had no rules to mutate it. So let's put in my first rule. So I gotta stop autopilot here. When the value is 1, let's build a consequence that says the value should become 100, right? Well, we know this is going to pass. Should pass anyways. And it does. But if I had a conflicting rule that said if it's 1, make it 10. Now it fails. It fails because we run the rules in kind of the order in which they were added. And so this order is the order that things happen. So the first rule runs and it makes 100. No, hang on. Wait a tick. That's not what I got. It got a 10. What's happening here? No, that makes no sense. And thus I am confused. Is this engine happening the way that I think it ought to? Now, right off the bat now, I'm thinking I'd like a little visibility into what's going on. So the engine... So my assumption was that it's going to run through and it's going to make it 100 first, and then it's not 1 anymore, so it'll never make it to 10. Clearly that's not actually the way it's executing. Let me take a dive inside the engine and see if I can reason this quickly. If I can't reason this quickly, I'm going to jump into a little debug session. So the rules are registered. It registers them individually as single rules. Rules is array. The order of the incoming array is the order in which this call is made, which becomes the order in which they're added to our embedded array here. So the order should be preserved. I'm running a filter, walking across all of the rules that match. Here we have... And then I'm running a reduce across those rules. See, and in thinking about the rules, the fact that this is an array, my original thinking stepping into this, I don't think is 100% valid. If I were building a rule engine, I wouldn't expect its execution to be dependent upon the order in which I put the rules into working memory, or put the rules into the engine. That's kind of an artifact of the implementation that I'd like to not be a defined part of its behavior. So, given that I don't want it to be a defined part of its behavior, I think I'm illustrating logic here that I don't want the user of this library to depend upon, which is a bad thing to put into an acceptance test, isn't it? Now, this is on the road towards having to set up a scenario where I'm defining a specific execution, where I'm defining a priority of, say, 1, a priority of, say, 100. And so this being, which is high? Is 1 high? This is high. Is 1 high or is 100 high? Let's call that the natural numeric priority. So 1 is a low priority and 100 is a high priority. Something feels janky about that, but I can revisit that once I work out how this actually works. So I wonder, I might want to research what some of the other engines do. I'll maybe step into Drools land and see how they treat prioritization. Okay, so if this is the higher priority rule, when we execute across this, I would expect that the 10 should fire first. You know, because either one of them is going to fire and mutate the property upon which we depend. So one of these is going to fire, and it's going to transition from being a 1 to either being a 100 or being a 10. And if I tell it that the priority is higher, that it becomes a 10, and it becoming a 100 is a lower priority when I have these two conflicting rules, because it of course can't be both a 10 and a 100, then the 10 takes priority. I think I like that. Sorry, I'm getting a little message here. I want to make sure it's not stream related. Aha, it is not, which is cool. Let's see. I'm abusing my failing test right now, aren't I? The failing test is not failing because of any predictable measure. It's failing accidentally. And I can abuse that and make it pass on purpose, and then make it fail and pass again on purpose, maybe. Sometimes I'll do that because I feel like the working through the first thing is maybe a bit of a distraction. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You would think, as the developer of the current algorithm, it would be clear in my head what that algorithm does. Yeah, not true. Not the way developers work and think, I think, in general, in my experience. I haven't met every developer. So, and you know what? If I were being a little bit more mathematically pure about some of this stuff, then I might actually know that. But I'm not that kind of developer. Okay. I say that just because I don't have a classical mathematics background. I didn't come from computer science. I kind of almost came from computer engineering, in which we still do a lot of math, but I'm not looking to have a proof for an algorithm, for example. Anyways, I digress. This should do what? Oh, it's passing accidentally. Great. So why don't I do this? If I make this a priority and this the not a priority, then it ought to execute in the same order and fail. And it does not. I am clearly missing something about my algorithm. Oh, hang on. I forgot to change my expectation. If the 100 is the high priority rule, then my output should be 100. And clearly it was not, because the old test passed. Here we go. I have a failing test for the wrong reasons. But I'm going to let this push me into implementation and see how we do. It still feels weird. Okay. We have a priority field. It's numerical. And that's an integration test. My engine tests. Oops, that's the engine, not the engine tests. My engine tests. Let's see, we have describing the engine, rule registration, collaboration between rules. Is that what that is? Oh no, this is collaboration, not between rules. This is collaboration between the read-only proxy builder and the main engine. collaboration with the write-through proxy builder, the main engine. These two things handle us being able to recognize when a property of working memory was changed or not, and allow us to refire the rules when something in working memory changed upon which a rule is dependent. So the rule needs a thing, the thing changed, the rule's got to refire. So in that case, because I'm running things twice, if I follow through that reasoning, bear with me, my rule engine runs potentially up to twice. It has a rule that recognizes that value has been changed to 100. And it's no longer 100, so it never becomes 10. But value changed, and thus we're going to rerun the rule set. But now none of the rules match, because it is no longer 10 or 100. It's no longer 1. Yeah, no, my logic still doesn't help me make sense of what's happening here. Maybe I'm missing something. All right. Well, clearly I'm missing something. Let's go back. The engine spec. We're testing the collaboration between objects. Yeah, this is where things start to get, started to get wonky. This call count is 2 because it fires the rule a second time. You know what, I just want to change this because I don't like that comment there. Show new reference properties calls because condition property was modified. That comment's now reflected in the description of the check. Okay, but I'm thinking that let's add a new section here. Prioritization section. And let's just comment this out for a minute. So let's see, I've got the engine being initialized. Oh wow, with all these stubs. Well, let's see here. If I say that it should do what? I could try something interesting here. But this might be in a premature use of the rules engine. I don't know what to call this test yet. Let's explore. So, all the rules are unregistered. Okay, good. So before each of these, then I want to register some rules, and I can just pass it an array of rules, and the first rule can say it has condition, that's true, always, and it has a consequence of, let's say, if working memory held a function, then it would call the function. Interesting. Now, the especially interesting part of this is now it's possible to build consequences that can no longer fire or refire conditions based on properties. Because if this was a function that, say, made a call to an API, and this was a function that made a mutation through that API, I don't actually know what happened here. Because that API call has nothing to do with working memory. Now that, I think, would be an abuse of the engine. If you want to set something up like that, you would really want to call the APIs, take the data from it, load that data into working memory, then fire your rule set. Calling an API from a rule is kind of an abuse, right? And thus I'm abusing this to think about my testing. Yeah, that's bad. Anyways, I know it's a terrible thing. I'm still going to do it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I got a condition that's always true. And maybe there's two functions inside working memory. Func1 and func2. All right, so clearly, if I'm going to run this rule set through, then when I ask the engine to, let's see, execute on, I need a structure here with two functions in it, right? I need func1, which is going to be a synon spy, and I'm going to have a func2. Guess what it's going to look like? It's going to be a synon spy. Now, I'm going to need access to these two objects, so I'm going to extract this variable. We're going to call it working memory, and I'm going to extract these two things. I'm going to call it func1, and extract this, and guess what I'm going to call it? Func2. So now I have a handle to func1 and func2. I'm going to execute across that working memory, which should cause func1 to execute first and func2 to execute second. So I ought to be able to say something like, I would expect that func1, actually these aren't lambdas, these are the spies, that func1 was called before func2. I wonder if this passes. Oh, demand func1 is not a function. Maybe it's not a function. Func1 is a spy. Func2 is a spy. Oh, no. Func1 is a spy, and I'm calling it. It's filling in the consequence. I don't think the function's getting cloned. I don't think they're surviving the, where is it? Object assign. I don't think they're surviving that. Does that make sense? Do I understand JavaScript? So if I have a structure that's got a func that's lambda, right? And then I ask object assign to assign that to a new empty structure. Yeah, it's still a method. I don't know what my engine's complaining about here then. Let's see. wm.func1 is not a function, huh? Func1 is a spy. I'm missing something obvious, I'm sure. Func2 is a spy. Let's see. Let's try this with spies. You know, just because. If I say that A has a spy in it, and I ask it to assign A into this empty hash and make B. B most assuredly has the spy in it, which is a function. I am not sure what's going on here. It's interesting. Still makes me feel like I'm missing something. All right, let's see. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Func1 is not a function. I mean, that feels like it's... Well, I can't really do that, can I? Oh boy, that's not what I wanted. Oh, that's really not what I wanted. I know what happened. Yeah. So this is a lambda function, and the return value, which becomes working memory, is the result of func1, which is nothing. So I really need this to become call func1, and then let's just return happily the working memory. And so this one is going to call func2, and then happily return working memory. Probably should put some semicolons in there. How does that work for me? Func1 is still not a function. If I only had one rule in the engine, what happens? Func1 is not a function. Take out the rule of references func1. Func2 is not a function. Func2 is not a function. All right. So I know a little bit about how code works. All right. Always call func1 out of working memory. We're executing across working memory. Just for fun, if I said working memory func1 followed by func2, then that should pass. And it does. So I verified that these are indeed functions. So when I try to execute this, now I'm even curiouser about what's actually inside. So I'm going to say, when I get this, then, oh my gosh, I should have expanded these out more properly, like, do a thing, return a thing. All right, well, good. So let's log out working memory. And this is the second rule. And this is the first rule. What do we get? So, one has data that has dummy in it. Ain't that interesting? So this before each. And this working memory. Governed by this. The stubs return the dummy data. I don't even get to call my methods. They never survive the stubs, the retrieval from the stubs. So clearly I can't examine the internals of how things are working this way. So how can I approach testing the order in which these rules run? I need a way to recognize their actual order. And I have to do it without actually running rules, because I've stubbed out all of the things. So I can use a technique that I've used before here, where I can take, so, you know, the engine is comprised of all these different functions that work together, right? So it does all of these things. And if I say, when we execute, the first generation of rules is initially seeded from this.rules. The second time we run, I run it manually. Oh my gosh, so the first time we run through a reduce function. The second time we run it bit by bit on a for each. Yeah, not pleased with that. Hence my comment. I don't like it. But I think the key thing here is when I seed this, the second run through, so I can seed sort of the prioritization here, but here I don't have an opportunity to do that again. I have consequence references that point to tuples and condition references which may or may not match. So let's make this code a lot less imperative, shall we? So this is imperative because this is a nested loop. It's walking through these things, and I want to flip this into declare the new, or declare the second generation rule set, right? And then I want to run the second generation rule set. Now, because I'm going to be picking apart this function, I'm not even going to be talking about prioritization yet, because I have to make these two runs of the rules symmetrical. I have to make them look the same, right? So I'm going to just kind of temporarily get rid of that. This is going to leave me with a fully passing test suite. And now I can kind of refactor this thing with some safety. So declaring the second generation rule set. Well, that feels like I'm conditionally, as I spray out across these two loops, doing a thing. Ain't gonna do that. So this is gonna become something, right? This is going to be a reduction of reductions. I bet that is, isn't it? So let's see. I have to walk through this rule consequence references, and I have to reduce that into an ultimately, I've got to flatten this array. So I'm going to reduce that into an array. Should that be an array or should that be a set? It feels like it should be a set, doesn't it? And then I end up with a sorted set at the end. I don't know. One problem at a time. I don't know, maybe not. Is rules already a set? No. Rules is an array. So I don't have set semantics enforced by this dot rules, right? So let's see what this walks out through. So if we reduce hold on. This is nested, but it doesn't need to be, does it? This is only nested because of the scope of this tuple, because I'm evaluating it here. I could unroll that. Just basically multiplying the two arrays. I don't know. I stick with my reduce thought. So when I reduce, I'm going to have some list and a tuple. And I need to collect for each of those I need to filter. For each of the consequence references I need to filter the condition references to see if I have any that match it. Okay. So what does that look like? That looks like I'm going to take the, let's call these, let's say this out here, consequence, cons tuples. I don't like that name. I don't know, we'll see. I really don't like the code that I write, do I? So let's see, this, for each of these, I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm going to create a temporary variable just to reason out all this filtering. So this rule condition references, and I'm going to be looking for specifically any of them for which the second element matches. So cons tuple is the same as, oh, I had to use an underscore for this. I forget why I had to use underscore for this. So that list becomes part of that. Now, I want to push all of this onto my accumulator list, which is going to start with an empty array. And so I only want to add things to it that match, right? So I could say, instead of this, I could say, I could return from this, what is it, concat? I think concat. I should verify that. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, good. So I want to concatenate the existing list with whatever comes off that filter. So that. And at that point, this becomes a simple lambda. Well, I suppose simple is relative. It is certainly lengthy, isn't it? So that becomes list concat, and that's the first argument. That's the second argument. So now, second generation should be a list, just like first generation, right? And then I ought to be able to let's see. Second generation filter the same way as above. This is basically symmetrical here at this point. Right? And then that's what I'm doing here. That's doing that. This is doing this. And now I'm no longer returning first generation, I'm returning the result. So this should be obsolete. How is it? Ooh, big bang. Ruled out condition is not a function. 3 failing. I didn't break everything. Okay. Should reevaluate the rule set once. Should process a simple rule. That's unfortunate. I suppose the result could be assigned empty, because second generation may not be populated. So what if I did this? Think of this. If the second generation length is greater than 0, then run it. Now I can say here, this builds the first generation. This builds the second generation. But really, that's results. And all I'm really doing here is taking the results, lifting it out of that. Oh, it's no longer letting. I'm reassigning. I don't know, that's just a rules list. Huh? Yeah. sorry, continuing to make this symmetrical. So there's our rules, yeah? Now, hang on. That's not what it was. I called it rules list. And clearly I'm mutating it, so it's not let anymore. And if the rules list length is greater than 0, then execute the result, or get the result from the rules list. Continuing to try and make this symmetrical. I suppose symbol and results are two different names, right? Returning the results. Now I can't, of course, let this twice. So the first set of results is a result of the rules list filtered and reduced. Then we compile a new rules list from the consequences, the references. Then, if the rule list has more than has anything in it, then the results is the rules list filter and reduce. I do this again, and I can continue to make this symmetrical. Right. So now these two code blocks are identical. I wonder how my tests are doing here. Still failing. Oh, now I have 4 failures. It's not getting any better. So it's not reevaluating the rule set. It's not processing a simple rule. So if I comment this stuff out and I return the results that we got up here, oh no, I have 5 errors. This is not getting any better. They're all up here in the really rudimentary things. Yeah, I'm not actually calling this twice because I'm not actually calling it through right now. If I did this, that's going to do nothing. First iteration is not defined. Got 1 error. First iteration is not defined. Don't want this code to have to execute, but I had tests depending on it executing. I should fix that. But honestly, this should fix that. I suppose there's no harm in it. If I commented this out and forced this to fix that, I have a kaboom. Unexpected identifier. Oh. Could be because that's still a comment. And I'm back up to 5 errors. Change for no rules. If I seed results with working memory, that cuts us to 4. The write-through proxy builder isn't firing because I'm not executing the second run through on rules. I'm going to ignore those. And it should reevaluate the rule set once if I allow it to. Where do I go here? Back to 3. Rule.condition is not a function. Losing the usefulness of these line number references. This doesn't happen in working memory anymore. Oh, hang on. This is now working on results. On results. On results. On results. And on results. Results is not defined. Oh, hang on, I'm letting it in 2 places here. Let's get rid of this declaration. Yeah, these weren't quite exactly symmetrical. Rule.condition is still not a function. I mean, are these the same now? They do seem to be. This So we're starting to fall into a lot of this logic, and the sorry, I just want to fix this up because I feel like I'm getting closer. When we execute against working memory, initially working memory comes from this .rules. And if we process the rules from the rules list, right? And if we return that from this, this is the work that we do while we're processing the rules. And now, here, I'm getting further and further away from passing tests. Here's where it becomes wait a minute. Working memory should just always be the results. Rules list should be passed in. These results get mutated I'm falling around in this. These results get set up there. Rules list. Yeah, that's this. That's the rules list. I'll start the results with the old results. The new results will become the newly filtered thing. My rules list will become the new rules list. And honestly here, I'm going to return this recursively. And honestly, this could be the new rules list. That goes away. So this starts to get a little bit cleaner. I don't think it's any closer to actually working. Was that a little infinite recursion? Oh yeah, that's excellent. Let's see. So I don't actually want to recurse forever. I do only want to initially I was just recursing once. So I could reduce this to, instead of doing the tail recursion here, I could say return the new results, and I could say results 1 is the results of process rules on the rules list. Ooh. I need to return both the new list and the working memory. Yeah, splitting this apart gets awkward, isn't it? I'll commit a counter here. I don't think that's going to do it twice. That's funny. I'm using this to limit recursion. Boy, does that feel dirty. Back to the 2 runs. Right through proxy builder calls made twice. It was only called once. Right through proxy builder calls made twice, again only called once. Calls made twice, only called once. And reevaluating the rule set once. Expected au revoir, but goodbye. So, those, I feel like these guys are right now causing me a distraction. I'm not working on the proxies. I am working on the fundamental retriggering of the rules. I have the rules seemingly not executing twice. Let's count that. So if I look at the engine, as I walk through it, and then process rules with a certain count. Oh. Ah. Yeah, well, that's gonna... I'm not recursing anymore. I'm going to call maximum twice. If it's greater than 0, I'm going to call the next one and count decremented 1. And that might work better. Or it might not. if the count is greater than 0, do this thing. Oh, obviously. Drop that inside the conditional. Return the new results. Without the typo, please. And I have passing tests. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it means it's running the rule set twice. Let's start uncommenting some of these tests that maybe are getting referenced again the right way. Now, I get called twice. You see that? Now, when I chose these assertions, I kind of characterized the algorithm. I didn't pick apart what it was actually doing in terms of collecting these call counts, and I measured what it actually was. And when I characterize like that, it's maybe not. It's not really a pure test. I expect it to be brittle, you know? I expect to be confused by its output because I didn't reason through its output before. I think that's what's hitting me now. I was kind of lazy, didn't reason it through, and this is what I got. So, measuring it results in a call count of 2 on these two tests. Reset referenced properties, I think. Yeah. And wrapping and provide reference properties. And the engine oh, wait a second. I want to process the new rows list, please. Not the same rows list twice. How do we get there? Rule.condition is not a function. How can rule.condition not be a function? This is filtering on the tuples. What's in those tuples? those tuples are the paths, aren't they? Aren't they the paths? All right. Let's find that out, shall we? Rule followed by the reference property. That's what the tuple is. It's not a path at all. The referenced property element 1 of tuple, not 0, 1. 1 of a tuple is the referenced property. The rule is the 0. So this isn't actually a rules list. It is filtering the conditions references, and then I feel like I need to, because that will result in all of the ones that match. So I have a set of tuples. I'm reducing those tuples so I'm just going to dump that out, because I think it will be the full tuple. So I need to take all these tuples and map them just to get the new rules out of it. And I'm going to take the tuple and I'm going to return the 0th element of tuple to get the rule back. Now the new rules list should actually just be a collection of rules. Yeah, condition, consequence, condition, consequence. And that becomes a lot cleaner. I'm going to get rid of some of this, rerun that. So I have 3 failing tests. I'm back to around expected 1, actual 2, expected 1, actual 2, expected 1, actual 2. So resetting the reference properties happens twice. Wrap working memory. Provide reference properties. Same 3 things. Let's look at our implementation again. So I am being asked to process the rules here. When I execute, I'm actually executing it 3 times. Off by 1 errors. And I'm not chaining them now. Definitely have to make that happen. Oh. I have to at least run them once. All right, back to my 3 errors. And so the characterized values again, that becomes a 2 as opposed to a 1. I'm curious, if I run this n times, does that become n? So if I say in my implementation to process it 3 times, is n 3? It's 4. Oh, I love predictability. That's awesome. Okay. You're a developer. Why don't you know what you coded? I don't know. Okay. Let's see. I don't know why I'm leaving this open. Gathering the rules. Asking the processor to process the rules. I've got the count that I'm listing out. Oh, let me pop that back down to... Well, let's leave it at 3. Here's a question. If I make it 4, does it become 6? It becomes 8. I think I have a bug here. Here? No. Yes. Here. Remember I talked a little bit earlier? I was talking about I'm just coming up with all these tuple matches, and I'm not using set semantics here. I probably have duplicate rules. So for example, if I say here, what's the length of these rules? Whoa. What happens to that? Rule size 12. What? How did that become 12? Yeah, process rules 2, rule size 1. Process rules 1, rule size 2. So the rules are multiplying. So say that I want this to follow set semantics. Does set have concat? There's a question. Just as add. Single new element. I suppose I would have to iterate. I mean, I got all functional with this, right? And if I look at the old implementation, let me step into the code the way it was. You know, I kind of had this nasty mess here. I wasn't generating a list of anything. I was indiscriminately running consequences. I bet that's how I came up with those 2s when I didn't expect them, and I just accepted it and made it part of my tests. Because this would have happened more than once if there was more than one reference. But if there was a reference, I don't want to execute it the number of times we saw the reference. I want to execute it once. I saw a reference to this property. I need to re-execute it. I need to re-execute the rule set that referenced that, or that depended on that property. Not for every time the property was referenced, just once. So I've got I mean, I could do a terrible thing. And, you know, that's kind of what it, it's kind of what it used to be. And it was this double loop. I could build a set. I could walk through them all. And if they're equal, I could add the tuple, or the rule out of the tuple. Right? And that kind of I mean, I guess I don't have to use that semantics here. I don't, I guess it'll be object equality. If I say that that starts as an empty array, and that if the new rules list includes the 0th element, then if it doesn't include it, push it, right? That eliminates that. Our rules length should become stable. Rule size 1 through 2, 1, and 0th execution. Let's move that log inside the execution so that when that log message appears, I know that it executed. So now this should become a little bit clearer. When it's 2, we got no rules, that's fine. So these ones here, ran twice, stable rule set. Expected 2 to equal 1. Read-only proxy builder. Let me kill this. Now that I understand more of. How's my time? Oh my goodness, it's almost 10 o'clock. Let's see here. I'd like to get past this and then call it a night. I have to pick this up tomorrow. Process rules. It's going to tell me the output. I don't need you there anymore, really. Let's check my tests. The read-only proxy builder double should have had reset called once. With a single rule. That makes sense, doesn't it? That rule was mutating the data. So, no, that will actually run twice. Right? It's going to register this rule. It's going to reset for the first execution. It's going to evaluate whether the data is equal to dummy, which it is. It's going to add that to the rep, and it's going to do it again. So it's like, because this mutates that, I would expect these to be 2 times. Now, if I change the algorithm and I run this, oops, three times, the 2's become 3's. I expect that. That is now scaling linearly with the number of times I recurse the algorithm. I'm happy with that. That makes a lot more logical sense to me than what we had there before. And I feel a lot better about this than I did the previous code. I feel like I could let this recurse until I decide to, until the rule set resolves, right? If none of the rules fire anymore, then obviously the new rules list will be empty, because none of the conditions mutated properties. I feel like there's some things that I can do to prove this out at the integration level. Sounds like I need to get creative with some rule sets. Set things up and exercise this thing nicely. The amount of time that I let it recurse, the number of generations it walks through and processes the rules against that working memory. I'm going to need a limit on that, because I can't let it run forever. If the rules never resolve to a stable result, then I need to detect that. And having an outer bound kind of helps build protection against loops. Now, I could say, a maximum run recursion here. I could even turn that into what do we call this? Max generations. Make it default to. And count up that amount. Test still should be good. Now I've made it tunable to the end user. When I ask it to execute, I can have the end user control how many generations it will allow that to walk through. And that means that if I want to stabilize my test, if the default maximum generations is 10, well, my test is going to fail because I'm using the default value. All I have to do to make my test stable now is when I execute it, I ask it to do a maximum of 2 generations. So in here, when I execute it to a maximum of 2 generations, my tests are stable again. Okay, so I've cleaned that up. I've done nothing around prioritization. Oh my goodness. I added a failing acceptance test and got nowhere trying to pick apart the algorithm. But I feel like now I'm at a place where I could implement it. I've just run out of time tonight. I'm going to pop into this tomorrow. Because now the rules list comes into here and can easily be sorted. I like that. So sorted based on priority. So if I say here, that's tomorrow's to do. Let's see, factoring for recursion and working through prioritization. I'll push you up. Ooh, this is on master. I'm not going to push you up. I'm going to hold on to this change, and I'll push it up tomorrow. Okay, this should go quickly. I expect tomorrow I'll be able to elaborate on those prioritizations. I'm not sure how I test it. Yet to figure that. I don't know. That's a tomorrow problem. Let's deal with tomorrow's problems tomorrow. Thanks for joining me tonight. If you popped in, I will pick this up with folks tomorrow and see if we can finish the prioritization feature. All right. Night.